Welcome to Chess, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate everybody for stopping by real quick. Have to apologize. Normally I get a lot more done than this in a day. It's been kind of a rough day for me personally. So I was able to get this second video done, and I'm cutting it close. I need to go to bed soon. So I appreciate everybody's supports. And for all of my people that's always from the Philippines, mabuhay, ingat lagi. And it is afternoon, so mag lunch na tayo. And maraming salamat po sa nanonood ng aking mga video, aking mga kaibigan. Appreciate you guys' support very much. For anybody who is coming from Norway, I would say God morgen, hello, and tusen tak. Appreciate you guys very much for stopping by and taking a look at my stuff. Yeah, this game is a very roller coaster game. So many twists and turns, and it is taken from round one, and it is game one between the world classical champion Magnus Carlsen and the world 960 champion Wesley. So let's go ahead and take a look, see what we have for this game. So we got c4, e5, knight to c3. We see knight to f6, knight to f3, knight to c6, and we do have the English opening, and this is the 4 knights variation. You know, usually you have 3 knights or 4 knights, or maybe even 2 knights at some point in certain games. So I mean, it's really obvious why they call it that. You see 4 knights. There are 4 knights in the middle of the board. So we see a3. We don't want to see any bishop to b4 situations coming, because sometimes that can be annoying depending on who you are and what you want. We see d5. You know, making a claim in the center of the board. So we'd love to press, you know, to push d4. And misplace this knight, displace the knight. So we do see pawn takes d5, knight takes d5, and we see queen to c2. We see f5, kind of like a little Dutch, throwing a little Dutch in there. So we got d3, trying to make sure we prevent any type of e4 situations coming. So we see bishop to e7, we see e3. And, you know, we're trying to give a little bit of room for our bishops to come out and, you know, try to join the party a little bit. So we do see bishop to e6. We see bishop to e2. We got castles, and we have a5. You know, b4 can be a little bit annoying because b5 is going to be coming. And, you know, it's going to be displacing your pieces just a little bit. So, you know, you don't want that to be coming up. So a5 does stop that pretty well. We do see rook to d1. We see king to h8. We've realized, you know, Wesley has realized that he's opened this diagonal. So even though it's not like a really crazy issue at the moment, maybe it can become a issue at some point in the future. So that's just a preventive king to h8 move. We do see knight over to a4, and this opens up the queen just a little bit, you know. And then we do actually see the novelty of the game now with queen to d6. I believe in the past we saw bishop to d6. Which is like a nice move, you know, just trying to put the bishop on a better square. A lot of the times you'll see, you know, a bishop from e6 or e2 move to d6 or d3. It just attacks the king a little bit more, you know, these tender spots. So we do see bishop to d2. And then we have g5. And for those of you that watched some of my recent videos, I was talking about, you know, when somebody attacks on the wing, you know, usually you want to try to counterattack in the center. That's a general principle that most hold to, and it usually has some good merit behind it. So we do actually see the very accurate d4 move. Now, some of you guys might be wondering, you know, why d4? Like, why not e4, right? Well, the thing about this particular position is that e4 and d4 are drastically different moves, and they end up in drastically different positions. One is actually pretty losing. One is actually legitimate, and it's d4. d4 is a legitimate one that Magnus Carlsen played. And so if we look at d4, you know, you pretty much see what you get, right? Just to play a couple of moves real quick before we look at e4, you see e4, and then you see knight to e5. Now, the point behind playing d4 was that, you know, by either the e or g pawns, your knight was going to get attacked. It was going to try to get misplaced. So pushing d4 gave the knight somewhere productive to jump to. Now, if we back up and we look at actually e4, like I said, it seems like it's putting an attack because now you're directly attacking this piece. Once, you know, black tries to attack, you could take another piece. But there is one single flaw with e4 and going into this continuation, and we'll get to that in a second. So e4, if you see g4 attacking, pawn takes d5, pawn takes f3, pawn takes c6, pawn takes e2, and you actually do not have the chance to take on b7 because you will be losing a piece after pawn takes d1 equaling queen, and rook would be having to take. So as you guys can see, you just lost an entire piece. Now you can always move, you know, the rook out of the way, but you know you're going to be getting taken like this. And you guys do see that you know, you have some issues kind of going on a little bit. You got some open files opening up. So, you know, black has actually gained quite a bit from this exchange. You got two different open files. You got the double bishops. And so black is actually doing quite well in this scenario. So backing up, we do see d4, and then we see e5. Knight comes to e5. We do see knight takes e5, pawn takes e5, and then we see queen takes e5. And we have a really like nice idea, like kind of like a threat move, and it is actually bishop to c4. Now bishop to c4 is just very plain as day. Like pretty much, especially the players at this level, they're going to be seeing right through this situation, because literally what you want to do as white is remove the knight, because you want to place this bishop on this square, and you want to pin this queen to this king. Like it's very like obvious what white is trying to do. So Wesley So says, hey man, I don't want none of that. So he pushes, you know, he puts his bishop on f6 to make sure that if you do see that type of a scenario, the queen can just simply move away, and you're good to go. So we do see knight coming to c5. We have bishop back to g8. We have rook a to b1. We see queen to e7. Knight takes on b7. So finally getting your pawn back because white was down a pawn. You see f4. And then you have knight takes a5. And this is actually a position that is completely lost for white. And so what Wesley So does in this position is actually go on the rampage. And he literally turns into a computer and starts playing like literally every move right from this point going forward. So we see pawn takes e3, pawn takes e3, and then we have rook takes a5. Which looks like it might be giving away just the exchange for nothing. But we do see bishop takes d5 and then rook takes d5. We see bishop to b4. And we see rook taking d1, making sure that we place a check there real quick. The rook takes on d1, and then we have c5. And then we have bishop takes c5. And we have reached the position of the game that if you do want to guess the winning move for Wesley So, go ahead and do so now. Okay, cool. Like I said, Wesley So just like turns into a computer all those moves ago and just starts playing like literally every single top move in the position. And what he does in this particular position is he plays a move that still gives black a nice advantage, but it's just not quite as winning of an advantage as he can get from the move that we're going to talk about here right now. So the winning move in the position is actually bishop to b3. Now, what you have to notice is black is up an entire piece. So they're up like some good material. They are down some pawns, but they do have an extra piece to speak for it, right? So basically what bishop to b3 is doing is it's either trying to deflect the queen, but it's also trying to like place the same attack on white that white has just placed on black, right? And so what the computer actually suggests is the queen sidestepping, and then it also suggests the queen sidestepping as well. And then you're pretty much just going to have dual trade. You're going to have bishop takes f8, rook takes d8. You got queen up to c8, and then you have bishop to b2. And this bishop is, you can move it away with the discover, but there really isn't great places to actually move it to that are going to like, you know, really, end up in a lot of material, So the computer actually gives bishop to b4, and then you can just go ahead and just move the king down to g7. And you guys see the position that you are down a pawn as black, but you do have an entire extra bishop. And this is just completely overwhelmingly winning. So this is the line that needed to be played. And bishop to b4 or bishop to b3 was the move that just put the nail in the coffin. Unfortunately, Wesley So did miss that idea, and he did play queen to c7, which, like I said, is still giving black an advantage, just not as much of an advantage. And so, you know, he does make it hard for, you know, Magnus Carlsen for a while. So we see b4. We have rook to e8. We see a4. We see bishop to e5. So these are all still like, you know, pretty top computer moves that he's playing. So he's definitely, like I said, making it very hard for Magnus Carlsen to try to, you know, prove that these two extra pawns are better than an entire piece. So we see h3. We got g4. Pawn takes g4. Queen goes over to g7. We see bishop down to d4. And this is white's like chance to try to like, you know, get some trades rolling and try to make, you know, these pawns on the queen side like actually be worth, you know, what, you know, white is hoping they're worth. And then so we see bishop to e6. We see queen up to c6 because, you know, even being down, Magnus Carlsen is still capable of making the best moves in the position, which he's doing. So he's defending the position well. And then we see the move bishop to d7. And this is unfortunate because this is a completely like game-ending blunder, is bishop to d7. And we see Magnus Carlsen take the bishop on d7, which just kind of looks strange because it's like, why is he just giving away his queen? Well, the variation that I'll show you coming up is going to be letting you know the reason why giving up your queen is legitimate in this position. But it is actually in this position that Wesley So does resign the game. And it's kind of one of those situations where like he literally was winning for so long and he was making it like depressing for Magnus Carlsen. So to see him blunder like that, it's not the best. It's not what you want to see after like such great play through the entire game. So that is unfortunately the way chess goes. All it takes is one like simple blunder or maybe the wrong kind of move. You can have the right idea, but make the wrong move, and then that is all she wrote. So if we continue on if we continue on this path that we see here, the reason why queen takes d7 is just complete resigns for black is because you're going to see the queen take on d7. You're going to see the bishop take on e5 with check. And it's going to be forcing the rook to come down and take the offender. Even if you don't, it's going to end up being the same situation where you have a rook each, but then white ends up just having 3 extra pawns to your 2 pawns. And as you guys know, I don't know anybody in the world that wants to play this against Magnus Carlsen. I mean, nah. I mean, the only way is if like maybe you're stockfish or something and maybe you can try to swindle the position. But I don't think there's a human being on earth that's able to play this against Magnus Carlsen and try to get a draw or a win. So backing up to the critical position that we had after queen to c6, bishop to f7 literally has the same idea, and it just protects so much better because now the queen doesn't have the ability to take the piece. Also, you could move rook down. Now these are still like good positions for white, but they're just not as good at all. You know, they give white just a slight advantage, but they're not. It's not completely one for white. And so, like I said, it's really disappointing to see like somebody grind a game like what Wesley So did for so long and make a game-ending blunder like when, you know, there's so many chances to win the game. So, you know, I actually feel pretty bad for Wesley So in this game. And, you know, but that's, like I said, that's the way chess goes. So, you know, that is the end of that game. And let me get to these languages, these good mornings for my people in the Philippines. So, maanyong buntag, mayad na agahan, naimbag na bigat, mesentos ya kabuson, marhe na aga, buenos dias, maanyong aga, mapia na uma, kapian kapu no dios, mayap a abak, mayad na aga, maupe, mapia agay, mapia kapapita, my big abukla, Maraja na buntog, Maria may nat, Maupe na aga, and Kasanyangan si elubi. Assalamu alaikum, salam to you, merci beaucoup. Whatever else might be around. And I think I got it good. But I appreciate everybody, and I will see y'all next time.